Hello, everyone. Nice to see you here this morning. I'm Jesse Cleverly. I'm the creative director of an IP incubator in London called Wildseed Studios. And this is Andy Green, who's the founder and CEO of Distrify.
That's right.
Correct. So we're going to be having a conversation today about what the options are for me as a producer of content designed for consumption in digital, online, on-demand spaces. And I want to have a chat really with Andy because we're quite young and we're at the beginning of our journey, and I want to find out from Andy what the options are. So I think first of all what we're going to do is just set up what we both do slightly. If at any point you are the brave few, so if anyone has a question, please put your hand up. If anyone thinks we're talking rubbish, please feel free to tell us. If you've got something, well, maybe not. If you have got a point you'd like to make, something to add, feel free to jump in. So I think what we're both going to do just quickly for 5 minutes is set up what we both do so that you've got a good idea about where we come from. I'm going to go first. So basically Wildseed Studios is what we call an IP incubator. So we've raised a fund of money and we are investing 50 lots of $15,000 or £10,000 into piloting new pieces of IP over the next 3 years. The ideas that connect with audiences or engage audiences will get a further investment of £25,000, 25 of those, and the 5 that look like they might really break out will get an investment of up to £100,000. So and we are chasing as a business one hit. And we believe that the current generation of creators has sort of, in one way, never had it so easy, because if you buy a camera and a laptop, you're a production company. If you plug it into YouTube, you're a broadcaster. But on the other hand, you've also never really had it so hard, because when I went into television, there was training, mentorship, expanding opportunity, the right to fail, and all these things are in organisations that are slimming down, broadcast organisations are slimming down. So access to this sort of training and mentorship has become very, very difficult to find. And if you're an emerging creator, I think you look at the world of television and film and how slowly it moves, and you think to yourself, I'm not really sure that's for me, because actually I could spend the year that you'd like me to make your coffee making a feature film. And in fact, we've just made a feature film for £20,000 with a 19-year-old, which you saw some bits of there, and that's at the National Film Theatre in London. So one can produce at extremely low cost and extremely high quality. The challenge, of course, is how do you make money and how do you get good? So we provide 3 things at Wildseed Studios. We provide creative mentorship, so we are talking to our creators about story structure, character arcs, format, audience, platform, etc. We could provide them with strategic advice. How are you going to monetize this? How are you going to turn your idea into a brand? How are you going to make a career out of this? How are you going to get out of your bedrooms? And we provide money. So lots of the people we work with have never spent more than a few pounds on their content. What you were looking at there was our first sort of 4 or 5 pilots. We've now got 14 things in pilot. And we are moving from production mode, purely production mode and talent acquisition mode, into the beginnings of a distribution strategy. We have our own YouTube channel. We are skeptical, if I'm really honest, about YouTube as a place to build our business. We think YouTube's probably a pretty great place to build a community and do some marketing, but we're not really seeing much money get made, and we're not really convinced that YouTube understands what the needs of a premium content creator is over, for example, the needs of somebody who likes making cat videos. So we are really interested now in the businesses like Distrify and other businesses, and we're asking ourselves, okay, where are the opportunities and what do we need to understand about this space in order to be able to make our business work? So, Andy, why don't you tell everyone what Distrify is, and then we'll have a conversation.
Thank you. So we set up Distrify because, well, I was a film producer and I wanted more opportunities and more control of taking my films to an audience, and saw that there was a rise in video on demand and a conversation with the relevance of video on demand and how to get your film out there and so forth, whether it be YouTube or whatever other model it would be. But one of the critical aspects that I couldn't find anywhere else was the ownership of audience, or the control or understanding when you make a film and when you put it out there online, say you put it on YouTube or anywhere else, that the person that watches it, you don't know who they are. And it seemed kind of crazy in a way that you would work so hard in building this audience and thinking about who is going to watch this and really never know who they were unless you found some other mechanism. So what we did is we built a video player that you had an e-commerce solution built in. That means when somebody watches a trailer, they can then purchase the movie that is behind it by entering credit cards, details, PayPal, whatever. And that player is then shareable anywhere online, much the same as the YouTube player. And when that player is shared, the point of sale is also shared as well. So this notion that we had is rather than having a video on demand platform, which is a destination that you have to market to get people to go to, that you would be able to use the entirety of the web in order to discover your audience through the sharing of the player. And the way that the business model that we sought for this is one of affiliate revenue. And that means if somebody audience member discovers the player of your film, they can post that to their blog or their Facebook page or via Twitter or anywhere else online. And if that leads to a sale, they get real money. They can log into their Distrify account and withdraw the cash that they've actually earned. So now we have about 5,000 movies selling in 150 different countries is where we've made sales so far. And we've recognized some really significant, what we call super affiliate partners. And these are sites that have really huge audiences like The Guardian newspaper or Metro US, etc., where they are engaging their audiences with transactional video on demand that could be your movie. And the entire service is completely open to anybody to upload and start using. The first film is always free.
That's what they always say, isn't that what drug dealers say? The first one's always free, and then you're hooked on Distrify. And
well, yeah.
So the things I need to figure out, I think, for myself as a business, Andy, is, I want to know what kind of content works. I need to know how much I should be spending on the content in order to sort of have some chance of making a profit. I want to know, what are my options other than Distrify, if I'm honest, because I'm still not sure. And I also want to know, what are my responsibilities as a producer for marketing my content? I as a television producer, I just handed my content to a broadcaster and they did all that. But I understand increasingly that it's up to me to find my audience. So, so maybe you could ask, just if I'm not gonna, I understand. I think Distrify sounds amazing, and the idea that you're incentivizing people to embed the player on their blogs and in their, and in their feeds, because there's a chance that they could actually make some money from that is really interesting for me. But you're not the only game in town, and I don't think you want to be at the moment, do you?
Well, yes, because I think it's this question, it's become really kind of complicated answer to this, but the notion of exclusivity and the value of rights through windows and where, say, transactional video on demand or broadcast or theatrical, wherever that right fits, of course, has a monetizable value at the point that you release that right. Yet, at the same time, we have this absolutely brilliant invention called the torrent file that means people are able to get your movie or TV show or whatever incredibly quickly at a very high quality and much better than any video on demand anybody else anywhere online is able to monetize. It's a far superior technology to anything else out there. But of course, the question comes round to money, like who's making money out of this and how do you make money out of that? And also in regards to the affiliate revenue, that something we realized is when people share, we thought, okay, if somebody gets, $1 for every $10 worth of sales that they create, this is a good idea, and we do have a number, like a significant number of teenagers, people in their early 20s that view themselves almost as employees of Distrify, although we've never met them or talked to them, that make not huge amounts of money, a couple of $100 a week maybe, and it's never. That range has never really sort of broken out into really significant sales in requirement of how much money they make. The people that really sell the films on behalf of others are people that care passionately about that film.
Yeah.
And they don't care about the money. And actually, when you highlight that they have made money by marketing the film, often they don't want it. And they say, give it back to the film. Which is quite fascinating.
I want to meet those people.
Yeah.
I do. I want them to give me their money back. But options wise, let's just talk a little bit about that, because obviously there's you guys, there's YouTube, there's Netflix, there's Amazon Studios. I mean,
Vimeo.
Vimeo.
I think we've tracked over 200 different options, and of course, iTunes is one that people do make money from. Amazon, the new Amazon services, this Amazon box that's coming along, I think this is going to be really significant as well. And for us, the important aspect is, to give an example, we had a film that was surfaced in The Guardian with our player, and above this there was a banner ad for purchasing on Amazon and a skyscraper for purchasing on iTunes. And we correlated that our sales went up, given the option when we saw that. And of course, for the film itself, this was a very positive notion that they actually informed each other and gave credibility to each other. And right. I'm not necessarily saying that we gave a huge credibility.
So by being on iTunes, even though they ended up buying it via Distrify, everyone went, oh, it's on iTunes, it must be...
Yeah, it validated the film as being more valuable by being across more platforms, is our assumption.
But really the way it breaks out for me as a producer is whether or not there's a gatekeeper between me and upload. So on YouTube, I just put it there and whatever. With Distrify, at the moment, I can just... you're not curating that.
No curation.
But certainly
that's why I have no clip to show, because I would be curating at that point.
Right. Okay. There you go. That would be wrong. So you don't curate currently. I mean, maybe at some point you'll need to, because you have so much content that you're going to be a sort of
around now. Yes.
Around now. Right. Okay. So in terms of curation, and I mean, let's talk a little bit about. I'm just really conscious of how little time we've got to have this conversation. I mean, should I be... I mean, you talk about the rigor of going through a commissioning process, right? So, so the thing about YouTube is I don't have to ask anyone's permission, I don't have to take anyone's notes, I don't have to, I just do what I want to do. But you, I think, believe that actually that's quite dangerous, do you not?
Yeah, and that is different to what, if I was sitting here 2 years ago, what I would be saying. And we've changed, when we talked about the revolution of how we can change everything, and this will mean a change in terms of what you produce and how you go about it, and we have these new ways of distributing it. And we've kind of discovered, well, actually, there's a problem of vanity, laziness, discipline and so forth that comes into this suggestion of revolution, because it discounts the rigor of a commissioning process and or anything else that holds you accountable to why would you make this story or this format. And this is something that we've realised that we want to try and influence and change a little bit, and say, like, if you're going to raise money through crowdfunding, that's going to be at least as much hard work in order to raise a significant amount as it would be going through a commissioning process. And you should be going multi-platform, the way that you're financing and developing that story through that, it should come through how you raise that finance for the film that you're making.
I mean, I don't know about you guys, but do you see video on demand as a way of not having to listen to any of those bastards out there who are going to give you notes you don't want to do, or do you see it? I mean, is that how much is? Just raise your hand. How much is freedom the important thing for you when you think about video on demand? No one's admitting to it. No, rigor. We want rigor. So for you, it's about. Because we were talking about, because I'm sitting here now and obviously we've got formats coming at us every which way.
Yes.
And I were trying to pick projects and which project should we back and, if I'm shopping for good formats or I'm thinking about the formats that work and I'm thinking about the formats that might make me some money, I mean, where should I be looking? Am I looking at feature films? Am I looking at 2-minute little bits of nothing, or what? I mean,
it has to be placed on a scale of expectation and what your budget is. So I have a really interesting example. We sell quite a lot of video on demand for Nigerian diaspora, and that is filmmakers, studios in Lagos making content for Nigerian population that now live in Toronto or London or Dublin or wherever else, who don't have this easily accessed, and Distrify is a very accessible system for somebody who produces content in Nigeria to get that out there, across borders and so forth. And we have some serialized content, for example, that is at a modest to medium price point, where the expectation is, can I make, from the producer, can I make maybe $500 or $600 a week from this? Because for me to make another episode, they'll spend maybe 1 week just thrashing out 10 episodes in a week.
Yeah.
And could probably do it for about $5,000 or $6,000 in that time with a relatively high production value. And I was speaking to this woman, Blessing Egby is her name, and she was telling me that it's possible, she thought it was possible maybe that she could become one of the most profitable producers in the world because her production costs were X, yet she was able to sell this to people with a lot more money who'd moved or lived in Toronto. So she's selling a series for maybe $12, yet her production costs, and now she's building a studio now is the thing, and ramping it up. And I thought this is a really good kind of analogy because it just shows a very astute ability in terms of understanding who your audience is, what will they pay, how much can I produce this for, and how can I make sustainability within my business to grow it by better understanding the value of this audience.
So for you, therefore, the question isn't so much, I mean, when I'm thinking about formats, therefore, I shouldn't necessarily be thinking about, everything I do, because obviously if on there was the thought, wasn't there, on YouTube, that everything needs to be short, and no one wants to, it needs to be short.
If I take the mean, 38 minutes.
38 minutes is the golden number.
And it is funny, when I see a film around that length, I think, that'll probably sell a bit better, and it does. And it's quite interesting this because we were talking about it earlier on. We look at the kind of joke we were having was to calculate the amount of time it takes you to get home in the train.
Yeah.
And that's your window for consumption, right? And what we should do is we should look at the metadata of when people have that window just to sit down, switch off, I'm going to watch that.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Because increasingly that window is not 90 minutes.
No.
It's actually 38 minutes.
Well, that's about right for me. By the time I've got on the train and, elbowed the pregnant woman out of my seat and, got my iPad out, I've got 38 minutes. Whereas if I get home and watch a movie, I've got to clear my evening, I've got to get permission from my wife to not tidy up the kitchen, I have to watch the movie listening to her tidy up the kitchen, and
and here's
it's a disaster, right?
And here's a really interesting thing in terms of price point is said that it is nobody, or some people used to say, okay, it was an accident by one filmmaker. They pushed this global button that set the price point at the equivalent of 10 US dollars everywhere in the world, or it was in multiples of 10. So this got highlighted because somebody bought this film for 10 yen in Japan, and of course that's
Not
pence, like less than a pound. But then we saw the film selling for 10 US dollars in the United States, and then it really started selling in a high volume, and it ended up selling thousands and thousands of streams, and not one person ever questioned paying $10 for a 38-minute film. Nobody out of thousands of sales. And the reason we believe, or we can assert, I think, is because that film was just right for that audience, and people were happy to consume and then share and tell each other about this film that they had watched. It fitted into their schedule and into their interest perfectly, and thus was worth that price point.
So really what I need to be thinking about, it seems to me, is, I mean, this sounds like, I mean, we all know all of these things is the thing that strikes me, right? None of these things in a way are new. It's just about applying the things we always knew but maybe forgot to this new world. But I mean, it seems to me that what I need to do is understand my audience, right?
Yes.
Or have a picture of my audience to begin with.
Yeah, so that's what we do. It's this word data that is just going to, data as currency, and to understand that, to view the data that is collected about your audience and by whom, as to view that as actual money, right? So if YouTube are not giving you the data about your audience, they're keeping the money that you have earned for themselves, right? And then they're going to use that to best commercialize their business. Maybe that's in your favor, maybe it's not, but you'll have no say in that matter whatsoever.
And in terms of me, okay, so what I really need to do is understand my audience in order to understand the format, right?
Yes.
So that's a point to bear in mind. And in terms of the money I can be expecting to make back, because we're talking about funding sustainability, right? I mean, I'm assuming that obviously we're not talking about feature film budgets, and we're not really talking about old-fashioned television budgets, but how much should we all be spending? I mean, these guys have all got limited amount of resources. They want to make something good.
Not to be evasive, but the answer is to the value of your audience.
Yeah.
And that is to be honest with your own sales projections, not what you want it to be, but by taking time to analyze the data that you create, where you can get it, and to understand. I mean, our measure of first measure of success is based on conversion ratio, and that means how many people watch the trailer go on to purchase the film, right? So if you look at a kind of typical online advertising model, if you can convert 1% of impressions through your banner ad, you'd be doing a good job. We average about 5%, and that is we have a lot of really bad films, that don't make any sales, so it brings the average down. We've seen films that have converted at over 50%. I mean, really, which, if you think about it, right, that when people are getting to that page or finding that player, that 1 in 2 people are then going on to purchase the film, often at a price point that is like $7, $8, $9, $10, even more. We even had films selling for $150 as well. And they look at their conversion ratio of around 50%, and they are just working out, okay, so we really know that we have maybe 2,000 people in the world to get to, and we're going to put a really high price point on it and do all the work to get to those people. And that work means for that price point, it's like they're almost picking up the phone saying, hey guys, we finished the film, buy it. It's really such a direct communication. Lower down, it's, I'll give you an example of this film we had about street photography. And this guy, he had a Twitter account of about 5,000 people, and those 5,000 people were the 5,000 people most interested in street photography on Twitter, if not the 5,000 most connected people interested in street photography. And they pretty much all bought it, is the thing. And he'd built that audience by being a voice within what he was passionate about. So from a producer's perspective, it's to look at the talent that you have within the project and to think, is this talent actually relevant to a big enough audience that wishes to communicate back their interest in the film or TV show that I'm producing?
But you were saying, I mean, the really, you know, when you said, because you were saying, I was saying to you, come on, tell me, what should I do? What should I make? And you said, well, we've analysed all the data and we've crunched all the data and we've come up with the conclusion of the single most defining thing that you need to do.
I've got the title for you.
Go on.
Make a film called My $1 Million American Orgasm Sandwich. Right?
That's weird, I have made that. No.
Because, of course, food, sex, the word American, it's hilarious. It's just like, you know, just apply the word American and there's more sales made in the United States. It's like...
But your final conclusion about what you need to be thinking about was sort of very, sort of in some ways, you know, uncontroversial, but intangible, which was about quality, right?
Yeah, because the data aside, when you boil it down, it's what we were just sort of mentioning earlier on, is because the lower cost of production exists, doesn't mean that you should make the film. You know, that the discipline in making a film that costs, you know, £10,000 has to. I think maybe you could suggest this if you like, but you apply the disciplinary layer over the top. But the risk should be considered the same, because the risk is also with our time and how we make this slush of content that isn't really for an audience and so forth. And I mean, we even sort of discussed the kind of environmental impact of making lots of crap, right? You know, because it's an expensive business, and it's not just the reduced production costs that are relevant, it's everybody's time.
Certainly one of the questions we ask any creator that walks through our door is, do you think that what you're doing is an act of communication or an act of self-expression? Because, you know, the vast majority of film festivals I go to, Annecy, for example, being a really classic case in point, is certainly the shorts in that festival, to me, are all acts of self-expression. They're not designed to land out there or create an effect or do anything. They're just what the filmmakers got inside. And they need to get that out, and that's a completely valid thing to do, and I would say that's an act of artistic creation and fantastic. I'm really interested in people who are actively interested in sort of engaging audiences, and I guess you call it the disciplinary layer. I like that, but you know, that's essentially what we're doing, is saying, why do you want to do this? What's the effect you want to create? Who's the audience you want to speak to? You know, who's the constituency here? You know, and
rather than, you know, it's a little bit cynical, but you know, we have this. What was it you coined the expression?
The repository of broken dreams.
The repository of broken dreams. That I borrowed $1 million from my father's friend, the dentist, and made this film that I've told everybody is going to win Sundance, multiplied by 30,000 a year, and then they would come to a video on demand service like ours and say, "You've got to save me. You know, I've spent all this money, and like, you know, you guys are great, so come on." Well, why did you make the film? You made it to win an award, you know, because if you made it to win an award, you should, I'm sorry, but maybe you should enter some other film festivals. But if you're saying that this should make money, well, you didn't make it for that reason. You made it because you wanted to take it to a festival. And you have to deal with the dentist now, because, you know...
Don't give me the dentist to deal with.
You know, because we should be spending our time with people that are saying, okay, I really understand. I work with this talented team. We really like how people are watching these kind of movies, and we have a great story that fits into there, and then, of course, it becomes compelling for all involved.
But what I'm hearing from you, I guess, is about, you know, my responsibilities as a producer to create a community around what we're doing and to market the work. And that seems to me a very new thing for me as a production company, because I used to give my film to a broadcaster and they did all that.
I'd be careful with that as well. I'm not sure, actually, if that, I don't expect the producers to have to become some kind of newfangled version of marketeer or something, and be in the game of having to build audiences, because you could spend a year building up a group of 50,000 people that when you push your film out on the day, you maybe hit 20,000 of them and you convert at 5%, and oh shit, right, that's actually not very much money at the end of the day. I think the more interesting thing is to look at companies that have specialized themselves within this area and to go into partnerships where they believe we can market a particular type of content. I know some of these companies now are actually paying you a little bit up front to market for you as well. And they're looking at the data and how they collateralize the data and so forth. And so our view really is to look at an ecosystem and a pipeline, because it's not a good use of time for a producer to try to become a social media expert. You know?
Wow. God, that's not right. Okay, so that's really interesting. So your advice to me is to not build a social marketing department. Your advice is to find some people who are experts in that, and I guess that's where the Distrify. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, that makes content.
We don't do that, however, but
no, but someone does.
Yes.
But that point that the content is the bait on the hook for the data.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because I'll give you an example of that quickly, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got 6 minutes. So.
Okay, I'll be fast.
Yeah.
So we did a series of films, sponsored season of films in association with the car manufacturer Skoda and the Guardian newspaper, where it was surfaced as the Guardian new film season in association with Skoda. And we picked 10 kind of edgy documentaries and sent these over to Skoda, and Skoda said, they're all fine. Don't think they watched them. They looked safe enough, right?
Yeah.
No, not too much sexy stuff in that, okay. And then what the rights holder got was we pre-purchased, or essentially Skoda pre-purchased 2,000 streams. So the rights holder was like, okay, so you just hand me money, okay, great, I'll take that money. The newspaper, of course, gets a big fee. We get a fee as well. And the audience get an opportunity to enter a competition and win a free stream. Yeah. So I think there was 1,000 streams, about 1,200 people entered. Only 400 of those people actually watched the film that they had won, right? Which is was utterly chilling, actually.
Yeah.
But we looked at it from this point of view. Everybody's happy and everybody's made money. There's no gap, right? And the databasing of those 400 people then for the producers and also for the brand is highly valuable, because what you've done is created for, say, Skoda, a cost of customer acquisition massively reduced, right? So they're happy with that. For the rights holder, you now have 400 people that are really the people that are going to buy your film and watch the film, and those are really valuable, and you can market back to them and understand who they are.
And I guess extrapolate from them, say, okay, right, if that's 400 people did it, we need to find 400 more people like them.
Yes, and then there is a sustainability notion that you build on the strength of discovering your most highly valued audience.
But at Distrify, I have access to my data, don't I?
Yes.
Which is a different point of difference between, for example, YouTube.
Everybody else.
Yeah. So from your point of view, the data is, I mean, obviously data unfortunately won't pay my mortgage, but over time, the data is where the value resides.
That over time, data will pay your mortgage. Yeah, I mean,
unfortunately, I need to pay my mortgage this Friday, but
if you look at the long.
Okay. I'll tell the bank. Oh, that's good. Yeah. And
yeah, I mean, sorry, seriously, in that notion, right, that there's a kind of future idea that you would go to your bank and say, I made a number of really fantastic films, and I've databased 2 million people around the world geographically, and about half of those have agreed with me that it's okay that I can use this data because they clicked the correct checkbox.
They didn't uncheck my box.
They didn't uncheck the box and so forth. And I'm trying to pay this mortgage down. It's a bit tough, but how do you want a million people geographically databased based on And
if they were sensible, they'd go, Cool, that's a bargain.
Yeah, because you may have maybe some kind of real metric information about that is actually valuable. That is more valuable is the thing, because if you look at, say, the cost of customer acquisition for a brand versus using the content to acquire them, that is
really though.
Although be careful, I'm no expert on branded content and so forth, but I think it's important to understand that the intrinsic value within the production is beyond just what you monetize it at on a sort of daily basis.
Yeah. We're running out of time. Is there anything that people who would, if you'd been sitting up here being me, you'd have asked Andy or wanted to know that you didn't find out from us? Sure, this is good. Oh, can we just pass the mic so that we can, thank you.
Just wondering if you could cite an example of crowdfunding and its potential risk and benefits.
Blimey,
Crowdsourcing.
I'm not going to get that one in 1 minute.
No. Well, there's a YouTube channel in the States called Cartoon Hangover, which is a big adult animation channel. They put a film up called Bee and Puppy Cat, a short, and they then went out and raised $800,000 from a community of people who loved that artist's work, who felt that, in some way the man had been keeping that artist's work from the public view, who were all very happy to put their money behind making sure that artist's voice got heard and got made. So again, I think to your point, Andy, they had a huge constituency of people who were desperate to see that artist's work get onto a bigger stage.
Yes, it's the right down to demand. How many? What's the demand appetite? And availability as well, because if you have something that is people can't get that you're going to give them, well, that's the best position to be in, of course.
Yeah. Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
I just wonder how you manage the standards as a distribution company, and how do you manage precisely the distribution? For example, I'm from Mexico, and we have many content created, but only for Latin American audiences. If they are trying to apply to Distrify to start distributing some of this content, how do you manage the quality? How do you see what could work, and how do you distribute through your line of processing? And if there's only exclusive content that have to be in Distrify?
First of all, we don't curate, but we have a technical standard that is within an automated process to some degree. Interestingly, we were the first VOD company ever to sell and remit in the Mexican peso. We were, and that was based on demand, right? But, and I think it sort of answers your question in terms of how we look at a standards of what people bring on. Sometimes a conversation has to take place. We're not actually curating. We had a filmmaker come to us and say, I want to sell in the Mexican peso, why don't you do that? And we looked at the film and we're like, okay, let's do the technological work to add that requirement on based on the fact that it was a good film. Because if somebody came with an amateur kind of sloppy sort of film and said, could you add this currency unit? We'd say, well, come back when you have something more valuable. So we can, if you like, curate on a level of if we have to add something more to the standards, but otherwise we have to make it freely available.
But you don't want exclusivity either, do you?
No, we're against it. It's no such thing as exclusivity.
Yeah.
It's an illusion.
Yeah. Anybody else? Yes, this lady. Wait for the microphone. Hi.
Yeah, real quick, could you just give us an idea of what variety of content you have on Distrify? Is it fiction, non-fiction, short, feature?
Absolutely everything you could imagine. And lots of stuff that you can't...
No pornography though, right?
No. I mean, some of the things
you
I've
could
seen
imagine.
come on, I've thought, wow, I just never thought somebody would make a film about that.
And I still wonder why they did.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're going to have to stop. It's been great having you all here. Thanks for being part of the conversation. Thank you very much, Andy. I've learned a lot.